You ever wake up one morning in your comfortable suburban home, coffee brewing, dog barking at the mailman, thinking you know the woman you married? That's what I thought too. For 15 years I believed my marriage was the steady ship in a stormy sea. Bills paid, backyard barbecue on Sundays, a church service every Easter even though neither of us really believed. Just that picture-perfect American family rhythm. But then came the betrayal. The kind of betrayal that doesn't just punch you in the gut, it rewires your entire definition of trust. And the worst part? It wasn't even classic cheating in the motel room with the neighbor sense. No, my wife went full avant-garde, Broadway-level betrayal. She became a surrogate, without telling me. Imagine that. Infidelity not of the body in the usual sense, but of the decision that defines your family, your name, your legacy. If cheating is toxic love, this was toxic trust. It started small. Strange calls at night, numbers she never saved in her phone. Doctor's appointments she claimed were routine checkups, even though her health insurance deductible was so high she avoided hospitals like the plague. She was glowing more than usual, not in the romantic date night way, but in that weird hormonal glow women get when something is brewing inside them. And I, the fool, thought maybe, just maybe, we had been blessed with another chance at family. We'd struggled with fertility years ago, lost a pregnancy, grieved together. Part of me wanted to believe she was hiding a pregnancy as some big surprise for me. That's the kind of Hallmark Channel movie my dumb heart was scripting while reality was running an HBO-level betrayal drama behind the curtains. I'll never forget the night I snooped. Americans have this cultural obsession with privacy and independence, right? But let me tell you, when you feel the betrayal creeping in, that boundary crumbles like dollar store duct tape. I opened her laptop. Emails with subject lines like contract draft for surrogacy and payment schedule. My stomach dropped faster than the NASDAQ in '08. There it was. My wife had literally rented out her womb like it was a spare Airbnb property. Without my consent, without my knowledge, without so much as a, "Hey, honey, what do you think about me carrying another man's child for 50 grand? No, she just signed her life, and apparently mine, into this deal. Now you might say, but she wasn't sleeping with anyone, so is it really betrayal? Yes. Yes, it is. In fact, it's worse. Cheating at least fits into a known category. It's infidelity, the stuff country songs and divorce lawyers live on. But surrogacy without consent? That's betrayal at a cosmic level. It felt like I'd been cast into some dystopian parody of marriage where my wife had turned into a contractor for the highest bidder. Toxic love in its purest form. And the kicker? She wasn't doing it out of compassion. She wasn't saving a family crushed by infertility. She was doing it for money. Cold hard cash. Like some late-night infomercial. Tired of your husband's boring salary? Rent your uterus today. The paranoia set in quick. I started weaving conspiracy theories, because once your trust is shattered, reality becomes a suggestion. What if this wasn't just about one baby? What if she was part of some secret surrogacy cult operating in the basements of wealthy Beverly Hills couples? What if there was a network of suburban wives secretly selling reproductive futures like Wall Street brokers trade stocks? And of course, my mind, fueled by betrayal and a late-night whiskey binge, convinced me this was a global operation, an Illuminati of wombs. Maybe Jeff Bezos was behind it, planning to colonize Mars with genetically perfect children carried by unsuspecting suburban housewives. Far-fetched? Sure. But betrayal will make you a conspiracy theorist faster than YouTube at 3 a.m. And then came the moment of confirmation. She sat across from me at dinner, spaghetti on her plate untouched, eyes darting like a teenager caught sneaking out past curfew, and I asked her straight, "Whose baby is it?" She choked. Not on the pasta, on the truth. "It's not ours," she whispered. And the room spun like a bad carnival ride. My wife, my partner, my supposed best friend, had turned our marriage into a contract negotiation without my signature. That's when the word revenge etched itself into my mind like graffiti on a subway wall. Not the petty revenge of slashed tires or angry Facebook posts. No, this would be American-scale revenge. Laws, exposure, shame, the kind of revenge that turns a secret surrogate deal into a lifetime of regret. You'd think I'd scream, maybe throw a chair, break down sobbing like the victim of a lifetime drama. But no, I laughed. Because sometimes betrayal is so absurd, it morphs into comedy. I sat there laughing like a man possessed, realizing my life had gone from sitcom husband to tragic antihero overnight. It wasn't just toxic love anymore. It was a parody of marriage itself. And that laughter? It scared her. It should have. Because it was the sound of a man who'd just decided that if marriage was a game, I was about to flip the damn board. You know that moment in a movie when the camera zooms in, the music drops to a single ominous piano note, and the audience knows the truth is about to blow everything wide open? That was me, sitting in my kitchen, staring at the folder I'd printed from her email. Surrogacy agreement. Confidential. Signed. Notarized. Sealed. Not just a casual betrayal, but a full-blown legal production with witnesses, lawyers, and payment schedules like she was closing on a house. Except the house was her body. Except the mortgage was my dignity. I flipped through those pages like I was flipping through a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Names of the couple, rich, of course, because who else can afford this? Beverly Hills zip code, luxury cars, the kind of people who use summer as a verb. Payment plan, 50 grand up front, another 75 upon delivery, bonus for twins. Twins! She was gambling with our marriage like it was Vegas. Except instead of slot machines, it was her uterus. And guess what? My name wasn't anywhere. Legally invisible, like I didn't exist. The betrayal hit harder than a cheating scandal because at least with infidelity you're acknowledged. You're the one being cheated on. Here, I wasn't even in the script. That's when I started piecing together my plan for revenge. Not out of rage. No, rage burns out fast. This was colder, calculated. If she could turn our marriage into a contract, I could turn her contract into a weapon. And America, God bless her, is a land built on contracts and lawsuits. The first thing I did was call up a buddy from college who'd become a lawyer. He laughed so hard when I told him I thought he'd choke on his cigar. "Wait," he said. "She signed a surrogacy contract without spousal consent? Oh man, you could nuke this whole deal." And just like that, the blueprint for revenge unfolded. But while the legal gears turned, my brain spiraled into the wild, because once betrayal opens the door, paranoia walks right in, kicks off its shoes, and makes itself at home. I imagined secret meetings between my wife and the couple, sipping expensive wine in some dim-lit mansion, plotting how to keep me in the dark. Maybe there was a whole network of surrogates, a black market womb cartel. Maybe Elon Musk was behind it, building an army of genetically engineered children carried by suburban women who thought they were just paying off student loans. My wife wasn't just betraying me, she was betraying the entire concept of family. And family betrayal, in America, is the kind of thing that destroys generations. I confronted her, of course. Picture this, suburban dining room, chandelier humming, her fork halfway to her mouth when I slid the contract across the table. She froze like a deer in headlights. "What is this?" I asked, though I already knew. She stammered, tried the old lines. "I did this for us, for the money, for security." I swear, if Betrayal had a greatest hits album, I Did It For Us would be track 1, but I wasn't buying it, not this time. This wasn't security, it was toxic love wrapped in a legal bow. "You didn't even ask me," I said. "You made a family decision without the family." Her silence was louder than any argument. And in that silence I decided she was going to regret this. Not regret like, sorry I burned the casserole, but regret like, I should have never underestimated the man I married. The next day, I scheduled a meeting. Not with her, with the couple. Picture me walking into their glass-walled Beverly Hills home, the kind you see in Netflix shows where people drink smoothies made from kale flown in from Peru. They look shocked to see me, the uninvited husband, standing at their marble countertop with their lawyer looking nervous in the background. I dropped the folder on the counter. "This contract," I said, "is invalid. No spousal consent. And if you think you're going to walk out of this with a baby without dealing with me, you're dead wrong." Their smiles cracked faster than porcelain. They tried to play it cool, offered me hush money, even hinted at lawyers of their own. But I wasn't just some naive suburban husband anymore. I was betrayal turned into strategy, infidelity converted into revenge fuel. I told them point blank, "You either walk away from this deal quietly, or I'll drag this circus into court and make it national news. TMZ will eat you alive. Good luck explaining to your country club how you tried to steal a baby with a forged contract." That was the first domino. I walked out of there not just with my dignity, but with power. They would pull out, the money would vanish, and my wife's betrayal would collapse on her like a house of cards. She thought she could outplay me, but in America, the betrayed spouse is always one viral news story away from victory. And yet, even as I plotted her downfall, I couldn't shake the absurdity. My wife hadn't slept with anyone, hadn't sneaked off to some motel like the classic cheating wives in every betrayal story. No, she just franchised her womb like a McDonald's. It was infidelity without romance, cheating without lust, an entirely new category of betrayal that deserves its own reality show. Maybe Netflix would call it Surrogate Secrets, Toxic Love in the Suburbs. And guess what? I'd watch it. Hell, I was living it. Revenge, when it finally arrives, doesn't come dressed in black leather with a sword. It shows up in cargo shorts, grilling tongs, and a cooler full of Bud Light. That's the American way. And if betrayal was going to turn me into the villain of my own story, then damn it, I was going to throw the most memorable suburban cookout in history. Forget July 4th fireworks, forget Labor Day block parties. This was going to be the BBQ of betrayal, the cookout of infidelity exposure, the brisket that ruined a marriage. I sent out the invitations like a man possessed. Neighbors, co-workers, church friends who hadn't seen me in years, even her yoga instructor. Backyard BBQ, family fun, the card said, complete with a clip art hot dog. No one knew that underneath those hamburgers and lawn games was a bombshell big enough to blow the cul-de-sac gossip network into orbit. My wife smiled when I told her about it, like maybe this was my way of healing, reconnecting with the family vibe. She had no idea she was about to star in the pilot episode of the Betrayal Journal Suburban Edition. The day came. Sun shining, kids running through sprinklers, red Solo cups everywhere. America at its finest. I stood by the grill, flipping burgers like a man who hadn't just been gutted by betrayal, but was about to turn betrayal into entertainment. She floated around, making small talk, carrying the secret she thought was still hers. And then I called for attention. You know that clink, clink, clink on the glass that usually precedes a heartfelt toast? Yeah, I did that. Everyone circled in, faces glowing from heat and beer. "Thanks for coming, everyone," I began, sounding every bit the cheerful host. "Family means a lot to me. Trust, loyalty, honesty, those are the foundations of any family." I paused, looked at her. She froze. She knew something was coming, but not what. And speaking of honesty, I've got something to share. Something my wife has been keeping from all of us. Gasps. Not yet. Suburban Americans live for drama. They lean in when betrayal knocks. I held up the contract. "This," I said, waving it like a winning lottery ticket, "is a surrogacy agreement, signed by my wife. Not with me, not for me, but for another couple. For money." You could hear the collective inhale of an entire neighborhood choking on betrayal-flavored oxygen. Her face drained of color faster than the ketchup bottle on the picnic table. Murmurs spread like wildfire. "Surrogate? Without telling him? For money?" One old lady whispered, "Lord have mercy," while some teenager muttered, "This is better than Netflix." She tried to speak. "I can explain," but I cut her off. "Explain what? That you turned our marriage into a business venture? That you betrayed your family? That you committed the most creative form of cheating this neighborhood has ever seen?" Laughter erupted, cruel and sharp, because Americans, when confronted with scandal at a BBQ, will roast you harder than the ribs on the grill. Her yoga friends stared in judgment. My buddies from work smirked, shaking their heads like they'd just watched a fumble at the Super Bowl. Even her own sister, who I'd invited knowing full well she'd spill more tea, piped up, I told you this would blow up." And blow up it did. She fled inside, tears streaming, but the damage was done. The crowd feasted on the betrayal like it was the main course. Oh, that's when I dropped the final bomb. "By the way," I announced, "the couple she signed with, they've pulled out. No money, no baby, just betrayal, humiliation, and regret." Gasps turned into applause. Yes, applause, because Americans love justice served hot off the grill. This was revenge not in court, but in the court of public opinion, the only one that truly matters in a small town. And here's the parody twist. After she locked herself in the bedroom, the BBQ didn't end. Oh no, it became a block party of betrayal. Someone turned up the music, neighbors danced on the lawn, kids ran around like it was the 4th of July. Betrayal had become entertainment. One guy even said, "Man, you should pitch this to Netflix, Cheating Wives of Suburbia. I'd binge it." Another chimed in, "Nah, HBO, too much cursing for Netflix." That's when I realized my revenge wasn't just humiliation, it was transformation. I'd turned toxic love into comedy, betrayal into performance art, infidelity into primetime spectacle. Later, when she emerged red-eyed and trembling, the crowd had thinned, but the whispers lingered. She looked at me with a mix of rage and shame, the toxic cocktail of someone who thought they were the mastermind, but ended up the clown. "Why would you do this to me?" she asked. And I, sipping my beer, simply said, "Because you did it to us. Family means we decide together. You turned us into a contract. I turned you into a cautionary tale. And if that isn't revenge in the purest American sense, I don't know what is." The days after the BBQ felt like the quiet after a nuclear test. Ash still floating in the air, neighbors still whispering, but the explosion had already rewritten the landscape. My wife, once the suburban darling who organized bake sales and PTA meetings, was now the woman who betrayed her family by secretly renting her womb like it was a storage unit. If betrayal had Yelp reviews, she'd have 5 stars in creativity, 0 in execution. Word spread faster than wildfire in California. The yoga studio dropped her. Church friends suddenly had other commitments. Even her mother called me, voice dripping with shame, saying, "I don't know how she could do this, son." Imagine that, her own mother taking my side. In America, that's the final stamp of disapproval, like God himself signing off on the verdict. My wife wasn't just a betrayer, she was radioactive. The couple she had signed with went full ghost mode. Lawyers backed off, money evaporated, and the dream of being some kind of womb tycoon crashed harder than the housing market in '08. She didn't just lose the contract, she lost her reputation, her network, her identity. All she had left was me, and I was done. Revenge wasn't just public humiliation. It was watching her realize that betrayal isn't a one-night scandal. It's a permanent scar, branded onto your social life. But betrayal has a funny way of warping the mind. She tried to spin it like she was the victim. "You humiliated me," she cried, pacing the kitchen in sweatpants, mascara still stained from days ago. "You turned everyone against me." I couldn't help but laugh. "No," I said. "You did that. I just provided the stage lights." That's when it hit me. In her mind, I was the villain, the one who took revenge too far. But in reality, I was just the narrator of a story she wrote in Betrayal, Inc. And then my brain did what it always does. It spiraled into conspiracy. What if she hadn't been acting alone? What if there were more wives, right here in our neighborhood, secretly signing away their family bonds for money? What if the whole suburban landscape was just a cover, white picket fences hiding an underground surrogacy cartel run by soccer moms and PTA presidents? Hell, maybe the HOA was in on it, funding playground renovations with baby money. I pictured a shadowy cabal called the Illuminati of Infertility, sipping Chardonnay while divvying up contracts, laughing at clueless husbands mowing their lawns. The paranoia wasn't just paranoia anymore, it felt like prophecy. But here's the satire. In the middle of her downfall, she actually asked me to forgive her. "We can move past this," she whispered one night, eyes desperate. Move past it? As if betrayal is a puddle you step over on the sidewalk. As if infidelity of trust, toxic love, family destruction could be patched up with therapy sessions and scented candles from Bath and Body Works. That's when I realized forgiveness was never on the table. Not for her. Not for this. I filed for divorce, of course. In America, lawyers eat betrayal for breakfast. The court didn't care about her sob story. The judge looked at the contract, shook his head, and basically said, "Lady, you brought this on yourself." I walked out of that courtroom, not just a free man, but a man reborn. Betrayal had broken me, yes, but revenge had rebuilt me. And in a twisted way I felt grateful. Grateful that her toxic love had forced me to find my spine. The irony. Months later, I heard through the grapevine she tried to pitch her story to some podcast, painting herself as a misunderstood martyr. But nobody bought it. Betrayal isn't marketable when the receipts are this clear. Instead, she became a ghost in suburbia, the woman everyone whispers about at Costco when she pretends not to notice. "That's her," they say. The cheating wife who wasn't even cheating, just worse. And me? I rebuilt. Therapy, gym, poker nights with the guys, backyard beers without secrets hanging in the air. I learned that revenge doesn't heal the wound, but it sure as hell makes the scar prettier. Every time I see her driving past, head low, I think to myself, you wanted to make money with betrayal. All you got was regret. So here I am, telling you this story not for pity, but as a warning. Marriage without trust is a ticking time bomb. Betrayal comes in all forms: cheating, lies, surrogacy contracts hidden in email folders. And revenge? Revenge is the only language betrayal understands. But let me leave you with this. What would you do if your partner made a life-changing decision behind your back? Would you forgive, or would you flip the script like I did and make them regret it forever?